Hello, everybody. It's Laura Eisenhower. I have a really neat roundtable planned with some really amazing women. We've got Susan Walter, Amber. How do you say your last name?
Tanguma.
Okay, and Beth SoulFire. And this is about near-death experiences. So I'm going to read a little bit about them before I ask questions. But thank you guys so much for joining me.
Happy to be here.
And the reason I say the word neat, which I didn't really plan what words were going to come out of me initially, is because I think people have always been curious about this kind of thing. These are the most profound stories that I gravitated to, in my life and growing up, and have been through a lot of crazy experiences close to death. But there's something really extraordinary about what you guys have to bring and what you've done with all of it, like who you are today after going through all this. And as people are facing a lot of fear on the planet, fears of death, losing loved ones, and just how we process that, I'm really grateful that you guys are here to talk to us about this from real direct experience and really stepping into your role as powerful, powerful healers that facilitate healing, of course, because that's really what, healers do. So let me tell you a little bit about them, and then they're going to tell us a little bit about the event that took place that led to the near-death experience. So we'll start with Beth. Beth SoulFire is an intuitive alchemist, teacher, holistic guide, and the founder of SoulFireAlchemy. She came to know the truth of our multidimensional being and living light consciousness after a sudden severe illness and near-death experience, which completed her initiation as a shaman through SoulFire, a walk throughout all space, all time, and all dimensions. She uses every particle of her experience and training to help you heal from trauma, deeply reconnect with the natural world, reclaim your authority and sacred sovereignty, and reunite with your higher self and ultimately oneness. So then we have Susan. Susan is an intuitive visionary artist. After near-death experiences as a child, Susan was given the ability to see into the angelic realms, allowing her to see the angels in their purest light form. She uses this ability to draw your angel's portrait and relay messages and insights from your angels. And then we've got Amber, and Amber was pregnant with her second son and everything went fine. A few days later, she had a terrible headache and ended up going into the ER, and she couldn't see. As I couldn't see it so bad. Okay. She was rushed upstairs and told that she had postpartum preeclampsia and had a blood pressure of 190 over 130. They couldn't get it to go down with medicine. Their machines broke. The doctor came in and said that they had to do what's called magnesium treatment to flush her organs and try and prevent a stroke. That's when she went into a weird state, and for the next half a day was in and out of visions. She was able to go home 3 days later, but had some existing health issues for a while. A lot happened in that time, and she was guided and healed. And she healed from actually, her brain was bleeding. She had dark visions and very beautiful light. Angels and God. The messages that were brought back to share is to live here and cherish family and each other. Love is number one. Heaven on earth in each person's heart through being healed. Yeah, wow. So, my gosh. So there's a little bit in each of your bios about the near-death experience. And so I know these are stories that could go on, and it's not an easy thing to summarize. So in your best sort of words, how can you, kind of describe it a little bit more, take us a little bit more into it in the severity of, what you were dealing with, and maybe the entry point into, where it began to take you and sort of the afterlife respect of it. And I don't know who's feeling ready to go first. It's really hard for me to choose, but anybody want to take that one first? Okay, if nobody wants to say anything, I'll start with you, Beth, if that's okay. And we'll just go around the circle here. And yeah, tell us a little bit more, because you were in a coma and on life support. So yeah, like what sort of led up to it? And before we go into the experience of the, being not in this world anymore, we'll just kind of start with what actually happened.
Oh, goodness. That's the tricky part, I think, about telling a near-death experience, is that what leads up to it sometimes is longer than the story itself of a near-death experience. But yeah, I started having some health issues that year prior. This was back in 2012 when I started getting sick. And I actually got put in the hospital on January 9th, 2013. And the health problems that I had were nothing that major. When I went, the one time that I went to the doctor over anything, which wasn't even remotely related to the reason I got put in the hospital months later, there was nothing wrong. I mean, there was something wrong, obviously, because I went to the hospital. But when they took blood, they couldn't find everything. Like all my blood chemistry came back normal. So that's just kind of a quickie on the background, because I could go into more, but for the interest of time, you know, I won't go too much into that. But my loved ones came home and found me having convulsions, and I'd been having seizures apparently that day. And I talked to my mom that day, and I talked to my friend Sherry, and you know, I have a brother named Brian who passed away when he was 19, and I was 12, and apparently I was telling them that I had to go see him, that he needed me. That's something I didn't get to talk about when we discussed it earlier, but I was pretty insistent that that he needed me or I needed him or something. I don't really have much of a recollection of that. So a lot of what I'm getting ready to tell you about what happened to me is knowledge that I get from family and friends, because I wasn't there. I don't remember having seizures, you know, obviously. But from what I understand, I had about 4 seizures-ish on the way to the hospital. By the time I had gotten there, I'd fallen into a coma. And I was actually in a coma for 5 days and on life support for 2 weeks, as you mentioned. But I was in the hospital for weeks, bordering months, and then had a long recovery after that, which I'll talk about in a second. But I had 21 IVs in me. I had tons of medications going through me to keep me going. I even had medicine to keep my heart going. They placed me on a ventilator in a feeding tube. They were coming in every 4 to 6 hours to take blood because they couldn't find out what was wrong with me. And they ran every test that you can possibly imagine, every toxicology report, every kind of pathology report that they did, everything came back negative, everything. And this went on for weeks, that they kept trying to figure out, like, if I had any special diseases or anything like that. But I had multi-organ failure. So my kidney shut down, my liver shut down, my lungs collapsed, basically, not fully, because, you know, obviously they're working. My intestinal tract shut down. And yeah, I mean, I just, in the coma, apparently after the first few days, I was unresponsive to anything. But the last day or two that I was in the coma, I was unresponsive to everything, including pain. They couldn't even apparently get me to respond to anything. But anyway, so as I was apparently, you know, my fiance at the time, he said to me, you know, if you're going to live and pull through this, we need a sign. And he left. And every single day, you know, throughout the day, all the medical professionals kept saying was that she's not going to pull through this. You need to be thinking about when you're going to take her off life support. And they wanted that to happen the night that I got to the hospital. They didn't even want to keep me on life support. That's how much of a goner I was. They kept, after hours of being wherever you go, and they take you straight into the ambulance and you're basically dead. After hours and hours of trying to resuscitate me and figure out what was going on, I mean, I don't know. I can't even imagine being in my family's shoes when they came back in the room and said, okay, you can come back here now. And this was like hours later, probably 7 hours later or so. And they say, well, she's not going to make it through the night. Do you want us to take her off of everything now, or do you want to call her family, like her immediate family, and have them come in? And yeah, it was pretty rough. So of course my parents were like, no, you know, keep her, whatever you're doing, keep her alive until we get there. So they lived like 2 hours away. And anyway, so kind of moving forward from that, you know, I had at one time, not before I left the hospital, but you know, during my recovery, I had up to 30 different diagnoses, and all those were guesses because they had no definitive evidence to really back up one diagnosis or another. So yeah, that's basically that's what triggered me, you know, and
Right. Gosh.
you know, who knows exactly when the near-death experience itself occurred, but I can tell you that it felt like, and we'll go more into this, I know, because you're getting ready to ask this in a moment, when I first started being pulled into something that I remember being this near-death experience, it was like being in water. And so I kind of always thought that made sense given the fact that I was on a ventilator, and they actually left me on the ventilator for too long. And that caused more damage to my lungs, and caused me to have like COPD. And I mean, I don't have that stuff now. Luckily, I don't know, you know, we could talk more about that later, but yeah, I really put myself to work trying to heal myself after I came out of it all because I didn't have time to waste. And so anyway, I know we're here to talk about
Oh yeah, we'll get back to just the next level of all of it, and it's incredible to be that close. And yeah, so Susan, you want to tell us about your what triggered the near-death experience, and then the next we'll go, you know, into the
So
actual.
mine's gonna be a little shorter, partly because I was 4 and 6 during my experiences, so I don't remember the details, and to be honest, my family will not speak to me about it. This is like, yeah, it's the skeleton in the closet that nobody talks about, and I don't really know why. But from the reports that I have read and what I remember is what happened was I had ruptured hernias, and I'd had hernias also removed at ages 3, 5, and 7, but I have ruptures both at the ages of 4 and 6. So I had life-saving surgeries. You know, and during one of the experiences, I do remember vaguely, being at home, laying on the couch, had a very high fever, and it was summertime, and there was a blanket on top of me or something on top of me, and it just felt so heavy that I couldn't move. And this was at a time when doctors still actually came to our homes. The doctor actually came to the house. Then my parents and he both went into the next room, and we're talking, and all of a sudden I'm like up at the ceiling looking down at them, and they're discussing, he's gonna take me to the hospital, or if my parents are going to, because I need immediate surgery.
So you were out of your body observing all this.
Yeah. And then the next thing I know, I'm someplace else. If you want to go into the experience
We'll
part
go there
later.
next. But yeah, somewhere else, as in not waking up in a hospital, but somewhere else as far as like multidimensional.
Yes.
Yes, we'll definitely go there next. So thank you for sharing that. What about you, Amber? What was the trigger that put you in a near-death experience? I know we talked about it in the bio, but anything that I didn't share in the bio that you want to tell us about that experience?
I guess a little more, I felt there was something wrong during that pregnancy, and I had midwives actually, but they were in a hospital for this child, and I had let them know, but I mean, I knew there was something wrong, like I just felt something off about my body, but like they did tests, couldn't find anything, and yeah, so I didn't feel right anyway during the pregnancy. And then, yep, so I delivered fine. The delivery went well. And after I was 2 days in the hospital. And about 2 days after that, so 4 or 5 days later, that's when I went in. I was just really tired, not feeling right. So I knew something was off because I don't take naps. I'm like, I don't really sleep much. and I was just like having 2 and 3 hour naps for like 2 days. And I'm like, this is strange. And so actually my fiance had to come in and wake me up. And that's when I could have just stayed sleeping. And during that time, when I look back, it's really strange because I felt like I was with my son and we were napping, and it just felt so good and like peaceful. And I thought to myself, if I was just ready to die, I could just die here like this, just so peacefully. So I think it's weird looking back now that I just had that thought randomly, and I didn't think there was much wrong. It seemed normal to be tired after being pregnant and having a baby, all that. So yeah, he woke me up and we just knew something was off. It's like this headache just came massively right away. And yep, that's when we rushed in and put on the treatment almost immediately. They tried getting my blood pressure down with the IV, but it wasn't working, and then their machines broke, and that's when they did the treatment. And also it's interesting because I before all this, I was getting messages that had started with my previous son while I was pregnant, and I was actually told or nursed in a way about all this happening, which at the time I didn't know that. It was later on afterward, looking back in my journal, reading things and seeing, wow, I mean, they told me what to do to prevent or help all this, and that there was a lessons to be learned. And so that was really interesting too. But getting back to the near-death part, and pretty much the rest, my brain was bleeding. I was guided how to heal it, and that was a whole nother story I'd probably go into later when we talk about that more. And yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So the power of healing we'll definitely get into, but before we get to that part of it and just the whole recovery, going into the actual, death zone, obviously it's a doorway, right? So that word sounds so dark to people, but yeah, let's talk about like what you actually remember and experience while you were not in your body. And we could, I don't know if we just, I'm learning like good etiquette and how to properly run a round table. I don't know if we should start with you, Beth, but if everybody's just good, just kind of going in a circle in this way, we'll start with you, Beth.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had your question and then I lost it.
Oh, no worries. So the actual experience of not being in your body and being in that space of the afterlife.
You mentioned that death is a dark word, but I'm going to tell you guys something I know you will identify.
I think some people associate it with dark, but yeah, go ahead.
I have an issue sometimes with near-death experience because there was nothing near about it.
It was full blown then.
Do what?
It was full blown.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're just dead, you're just dead. I mean, it's that for me. I've had, and I think we all have, certain spiritual experiences that is very much near death like, and that we have an outer body or an astral experience or whatever. But anyway, so I was telling you that mine it revolved around water in the beginning and in the end. And this makes sense in a way because one of the things that I didn't mention is when I was in the hospital, I gained 31 liters of fluid. And, I don't know. For me, it just felt like it wasn't a feeling because, you can't really put feeling into it. But when I first felt this pull, I guess you could say, of course you're in a space of unconsciousness, but then I felt this pull into an ocean. But you know, I've never really been deep diving or anything like that, so I don't have experience with which to talk about this. One thing real quick, Susan, I wanted to say too, is that I understand you not having the ability to talk to your family about it. That's something I spoke with Laura about a little bit when she did my interview, that sometimes we're in that position of not even being able to express. And the thing with water too, as I was coming out of the coma, I was pulling all that intubation in me out, and it damaged my vocal cords, and it damaged my swallow reflex, and I couldn't even drink water. I couldn't have anything food-wise, but I could have like thickened nectar. So, you know, those are things that you don't take for granted after that ability is taken, just basic abilities are taken away from you. But anyway, so I was pulled into this deep ocean, and it was like being pulled down into this darkness of a cavern almost. And then the water sort of left, and it was, I hate language, by the way. This is my biggest barrier in talking about any near-death experience or really powerful spiritual experiences, because I feel like human language is so grossly insufficient
Oh,
to
I
speak
hear, yeah.
everything that we
Yeah.
go through. And you guys know, every word that we pull at, it's like, well, no, that's no good. I mean, that doesn't even come close to describing it. So there's a lot of frustration involved in even being able to articulate this stuff. So pardon any puns or, you know, things that seem like, but, you know, we don't really have any other imagery to use except for what we can use that's already in the collective's mind or even in our own mind to compare it with. So it was almost like this swirling, like a vortex, but it pulled me into what I refer to as the void. But in that void, I kept going. And what I mean by that is I saw like what I could only describe or equate to like an event horizon. And for me, this didn't take any time at all, right? So it was like a pretty, I don't know, time really doesn't exist in that moment, but in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that long of an experience to be pulled through these layers. And coming through this event horizon, I was in this place that I can only describe, that has no dimension and no time and no space, but everything was there. And when I mean everything, I mean all time, all space, and all dimensions. That's not something that you can convey to anybody.
Right.
I think even people who sit in meditation for a really long time, who are able to reach a state of nirvana or bliss consciousness, or they have some sort of experience that pulls them to this place of a stillness that's a place of all existence. And so the only thing I know how to describe it, or way I know how to describe it, excuse me, is that I can speak about, and we all hear that term, the I am and the oneness. But I didn't witness and observe the oneness or the I am. I was the I am and the oneness, but we all are. So it's not like, you know, I'm just like, I'm sitting here going like, you know, I'm the oneness. No, we all are, right? But my consciousness got to go to that space or that place. I like the word place better. To observe experience, you could use those words, but it wasn't even an observation or experience. It was a beingness. It was a suspended animation. You know, how do you even begin to speak to understanding the alpha and the omega and how that doesn't have an ending or a beginning? And there's no directional point of reference, and there's no dimensional point of reference. So yeah, that was for me like that ultimate space. And you mentioned a doorway, and I want to speak to that doorway in a second as it relates to spiritual experiences. But I was pulled, I got to kind of like be there, right? And have that experience of being oneness. Then I was pulled back, and I was being pulled back through this event horizon. One of the things I want to mention is think about a black hole, right? None of us know what a womb might be like or what a black hole might be like, and we know that it's just a scientific theory, as is everything, right? Most of it's just theory. But if you put yourself in even being able to witness what they think they observe is a black hole, nothing escapes from it, not even light, right? But if you look at it, there's light escaping, right? There's stuff, this matter being spewed out of it, right? Pure creation. But it comes from this space from within the black hole of like what seems to be nothing, but is it, right? So it's kind of like, in a way, the idea of Schrodinger's cat. It's both alive and dead at the same time. It's everything and it's nothing. It's all things and it's no thing. But as I was being pulled back through this void, that's when I entered back into the void. And there was I refer to them for other people as a collective. I don't know them personally as a collective because they don't have a name. They don't have a form. I mean, I could call them shadows of light, but would that make sense to you? Right? I mean, those of us who have an experience like this, it might make sense to you, but you know, they basically were trying to give me an understanding of what my soul's purpose was. And so I saw all of these different timelines they were showing me, and all the different possible paths that I could take or choices that I could make. And you know, when you see the result or the outcome of other timelines in which you say no to this calling, that's not something. If you have any I don't know what the proper term would even be. I don't like the term a moral compass because that, you know, would suggest something that I'm not trying to necessarily suggest. I guess I felt like I had this responsibility, but at the same time, I knew that I made an agreement to come here and do this. And so I think the reason that they showed me all these different timelines is to get me to understand the importance for me and for whatever it was that I needed to do when I came back.
And you didn't want to go back, right? You
do what?
You didn't want to go back. I think you mentioned in the interview.
I didn't, at that moment, I didn't know because I didn't know what I was going to be going back to. I had no idea.
Right.
You know, when I did get back, I didn't want to be back because I'm back in that body and it's destroyed. It's been annihilated pretty much. And I couldn't move. I mean, I literally couldn't move. I had so much fluid on my body. And I remember one night, this was like several days after I came out of the coma, and they put me in a step-down unit. And I remember that room having no windows, and it was so small, and it was like these cinder block walls. And everybody had gone home, and I had nobody with me. And I remember trying to move, and I couldn't. And I was pressing the button, and the nurses come in there, and they're like, "Where do you think you're gonna go?" My whole experience of the medical side has been pretty cruel. You know, I had no way to talk if I had wanted to talk because I pulled that innovation out of me. So I couldn't speak. You know, and they tried to basically treat me like I was a crazy person. And I couldn't convey to them that I just wanted to see if I could get out of the bed and to stand, and I wanted to understand what was happening to me, and I had nobody to explain what was happening to me. In the same way, I had nobody really, even though the collective I mentioned showed me these things. There was no guidance in that about what I just witnessed or saw or came through. And there wasn't a whole lot of guidance about that when I got back into this body. The only thing that I was left with was, well, here you go. You got a big task, heal. And in my mind, I couldn't heal with the help of the professionals because everything they were trying to do was to kill me. And, you know, I was on all these different
Wait,
medications.
everything they were trying to do was going to kill you, you're saying?
I felt like it was killing me because they had me on like 37 different ridiculous medications. I mean, who even, you know, and most of them, not most of them, but there was like 3 of them, they said, you know, you'll die unless you take these. Well, as I told you, I worked very hard to systematically get myself off of those medications. And I didn't have anything else to do after I come out of my recovery. When I finally got to the point where I was able to actually pick up my phone or have my computer and actually do any kind of research, I couldn't do a whole lot on my own right out of the gate. Fortunately, I had been a massage therapist for many, many years, and I already had a basic knowledge of holistic medicine and some knowledge of like herbal and supplemental therapies, but not a tremendous, not anything that would like point me in the direction I needed to go to try to heal all the things that were wrong with me, all the diagnoses that they came up with. I know I'm using a lot of air quotes, but you know, because really there's no terminology that is even correct. I get so frustrated just speaking about this stuff.
You're doing amazing, but it really just that awareness of they can't help you. This is something you have to kind of figure out, and then you started to move in the direction of how you were able to heal and recover, which we'll get into when we go back around. But yeah, it's incredible. And this is what we're up against in the world right now, and this is why this interview is so timely, because there's a lot of what we're being told, but then we have that inner voice and we have our own internal guidance, and we're learning to step into that awareness of self and what really works. And it's not to say that all doctors or the whole medical industry is flawed, but I think people get my point, and what you're bringing forth, you know, from a real true experience. So yeah, Susan, where were you taken? Do you have any memories of going into the sort of afterlife?
Yes, I do. The first thing I remember is being in this, you know, very large, you know, a very expansive park type setting. The trees were just, you know, they were just massive. Now we'd probably equate them to something similar to the redwoods. And there were these 3 light beings, you know, that I, you know, now, you know, generally referred to as angels, underneath that tree that introduced themselves to me. And, you know, I grew up on a farm in central Iowa. And I was, you know, as a kid, I was notorious. If there was a nest of baby rabbits or baby mice or whatever, I found them. And you know, and I just, you know, play with them with my fingers and kind of let them, you know, like walk around on my hands and stuff. And just, yeah, that was what I did to entertain myself all day long. My parents, they pretty much, you know, all 3 of us kids, we were just allowed to just kind of spend the whole day outside when the, you know, weather permitting, and just do kind of whatever we want. We came back in the house when we were hungry. But you know, once I was introduced to these 3 beings, yeah, and then they pretty much just asked me if I wanted to see the world through the eyes of the animals. And they started out with animals that I was familiar with, you know, like, you know, mice and rabbits and, you know, small animals. And then it just for me, it felt like I was literally seeing the world through their eyes then. And I was just going from animal to animal to animal. And then I ended up, you know, in different sized birds. And to be honest, I'm not really sure what types of birds they were. The next thing I know, it's like one of them like dove down into the water. And then I jumped from being in this bird that was probably feeding into a fish. And then like in the last one was probably some sort of whale. And then I was just feeling the expanse of the ocean. And then all of a sudden, and this is a part, to be honest, I've only ever shared with one other person, but then with that, it almost felt like I was in the void would be the word I would use now.
Right. You both.
It was this darkness.
Uh-huh.
And then I was shown where I had been an angel. And I was being, or it's like I was going to be one. That's, yeah, like when the soul separated from the creative field or creative force. When that took place, it's like I decided I was going to be an angel, and that's where I was going. And I was with 2 other beings that were also doing the same thing, and we were stopped and actually asked to come to be planet creators. Was the closest to the words I could use to describe what we were asked to do. And we were shown what it would be like no matter which choice we took. You know, if we chose to be angels, what things would be like. If we choose to incarnate, what it was going to be like. But of course, you know, you don't really fully understand it from that perspective. But I obviously chose to come here. The other 2 beings did not. They went on to go into the angelic realms.
Wow. So maybe anybody can jump out with an answer to this, or you know, you're still in the flow here. How would you kind of describe it as different than like a dream? Because some people have very lucid and vivid dreams. What made it feel different than a dream?
Oh, that's a good question.
And Beth and Amber too, if any thoughts. I know I'm like, God, if I wouldn't know how to answer it, probably, because they're so similar, really, you know?
Yeah. To me, dreams there's just a flow to them that is not, their dreams can be very choppy, where you can literally be, in one place with, people doing one thing, and all of a sudden you're someplace totally different, doing something different. And that there was much more of a flow to this, is one way I would describe it.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
Yeah, I felt like I was still present, unlike a dream, like I was still awake, you know, awake, aware, and but in this kind of state.
Yeah, it almost feels like you have maybe more control.
Yeah.
In a way than like in a dream, you're just bouncing around and none of it makes sense.
For me, it's extremely vivid, and not just vivid, but I don't know if dynamic is the right term, but what Susan was saying really speaks to me, because dreams can be kind of like you're here and you're there and you're here and you're there, and sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. This was like, I wish I had some terms.
Like
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like a story playing out in a way.
Right. I mean, it's
Like
real direct. I mean, it's something that, like, dreams are easily forgotten. I mean, this seems like a visceral like experience, and you were very, very present, and you were there. And
I know one thing that I can say to that is that, well, it's okay. So like in dreams, I've had experiences where I can be emotional, right? I'm not saying that emotion wasn't there where I was when I had a near-death experience, but it didn't run through me. Like, as human beings, when we're in our meat suit, as I call it, we have emotions that affect us in a very real way. And it's not that the emotions or the experience of that emotion wasn't there, but I didn't experience it in the same way that I did as a human. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, you guys know what I mean?
yeah.
It's not that you're not a human being. I mean, I didn't lose my consciousness, my conscious expression as Beth completely. It was there, but it was that experience of being that all, that everything. And so in a way, it's not that it was removed, it just, the charge wasn't there. So where you might be overwhelmed by having that experience and just not know how to process it, or it's overloading your circuits, it was like being given all, like, if you can imagine the overload, but it's at the same time being discharged, and it's very fluid.
It's like the spectrum is so much more open on, yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
multidimensional thing.
Yeah.
But it's also very comfortable. I almost felt like home. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Amber, we'll kind of, yeah, I know that I could be on the line with you guys for hours and hours. So we'll have to do more. But Amber, yeah, tell us about what you remember when you weren't really in the physical realm anymore.
Well, mine started, so I was kind of in and out, and then I kind of went in, out or in, I'm not sure how you'd word it, but I kind of went in that space, and that's when a lot of those things started playing out. I was first greeted by, angels, but they're not like what you think of in books and stuff, like light.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they're like light.
Mm-hmm.
And then some past loved ones who I'm not even sure who some of them were. Actually, some was my fiance's family. And the light, and they were just like kind of over in the corner, and I saw all these kind of light beings and past loved ones. And then I went into like this, it's like they were with me, like guiding me with me into this place where I actually had like these figures. They started to like kneel down and like put things, I don't know what it was, like offerings or gifts, I'm not sure, but they were like a row of these figures just going down this row and coming, kneeling, and then going and leaving, and each had their turn. And I was just thinking, I don't want to die. Like, I don't think I'm ready to die, but if it's my time, then I'm not sure, but I would like to stay here with family. And so that's where I call it like maybe a trial, or I'm not sure, but this is how mine played out. So they started doing these offerings or something. And then as that was going on, I started to go traveling, I guess. And like you say, Beth, it's so true. It's not like there's no space, time, or there's like nothing. It's just, yeah.
Right. So it's multidimensional, but it's also non-dimensional. It's like everything and nothing, like you said.
Yeah.
And you all are in agreement to that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Continue. Awesome.
And so I started seeing some dark stuff, like dark figures. And again, there's not really human words for it, like dark. They weren't beings, but they were like just energies, like a lot of shapes and really dark and gray. And it was like I was passing by or seeing this place, and I just was like, well, I'm not going there. That's like, I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel anything, but I just am like, like not going there. It wasn't exactly even a thought, not going there, but I just was observing and like,
It was like
no.
maybe avoiding like a big ravine or a ditch or a murky swamp when you're on a hike. Maybe you just see it, but you know not to go there, I guess, or get stuck in the quicksand.
Yeah, I guess like that. It's like just passing by this time and seeing this place, but not even really a place, just going through this void maybe, but then I saw shapes with it. And so then we traveled and went to the light place. So then I saw all this beautiful just colors and shapes, and like I can't explain it except neon, vibrant, like very colorful. And I just felt so happy and beautiful, and like just this overwhelming feeling inside that I can't really explain, because that was also different from like the God feeling when I saw the big light. But this one was just like happy and very, very beautiful. And I saw this whole time I had like Mother Mary and Joseph really, really close. And so people know I was not religious before this. I was very in the middle of everything, and I still am, but I've just witnessed and been in the presence of the angels, so I choose to use, you know, that energy now, because I just love it.
It's not a belief system once you experience it,
Yes,
right?
exactly. I mean, it's just crazy now. I'm like, wow, I look so much different than because I went through all of it. I experienced it, yeah. And so they really guided. They were like my kind of with me going through all this. And so then I had the this one was strange, but I had that Tim McGraw song, Humble and Kind. I just started hearing it for some reason. And
we're not in this realm.
Yep, while I was in the beautiful kind of place. And oddly enough, after all this, my fiance had said he heard that song, but it wasn't in a car. He thought it was a car next to him, and it was nowhere around. Like, it really wasn't. So, and then the times matched up, because he was mostly there with me, but they had him leave because he was there for like a night, day straight, and they're like, you need to let her get rest. You need to go. So that was really awesome. Like, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But anyway, then back to, then that's when I started getting these visions of like the future. So this one I said, you know, please let me live. I'd like to see my family. I'd like to be with my family, but I understand if not. But if so, I mean, that's what I'd like to do, is stay and be with my family. And then they started showing me like some birthdays. It was like everything was so fast, but not. Like it
Would you call that a part of a life review, maybe?
I think so, yeah. Like clips. So I saw birthdays of the kids as they were growing up, and saw them like older.
So, but that was being presented to you to make a choice, would you say? About whether you're going to come back in?
Possibly.
Okay, anyway, keep going with it all. I just wanted to just clarify.
Yeah, it could be. See, some I'm still learning, I guess. But to me, I felt like I just kind of was like, well, okay, if that's what I get for wanting to stay with my family, at least seeing them, and I still have to go, then I'll just go, and I'll be grateful for what I got to see, you know, this kind of life review. So I felt like that was a big lesson too, just being grateful. Like, this time that we have here is really limited. So, I mean, during that whole thing, that's how I felt, is like, wow, okay, I'll appreciate what I can get. And then this was then when I started like kind of seeing. It was weird, because it's like I don't know if I've had out of body before, and this was kind of like a mix, almost like I could see it, but I was also here. In my brain, the bleeding had started. Well, I think it had been there.
And that was induced because of the blood pressure going so high? Is that how you got
that? I'm not sure. I also had, my organs were failing, and that's why they had to do the flush to try and get them cleared out. So I'm not sure what it stemmed from. So maybe anyway, just all of that.
Right. But you started to feel the bleeding at that point. So
yeah, going. It's like I saw it and felt it, and was like seeing in there. And so I think now it was Archangel Raphael, which at the time I didn't really know many of the archangels. This happened afterward that I found out and started realizing, but So I was just being like guided to like heal it. So I was just getting these like visions, like showing me myself like sucking it out, like sucking it, and then this like rag, which was weird, like just pulling it all out. And
Wow,
so I just sat there just like absorbing it, pulling it out. And it's like even though I was out of my body, so it was out of my body, and something was like helping pull it. So it's like it was teaching me physically, but not really physically, pulling it out and sucking it and saying, you can heal yourself. And so that's really when I learned more about healing ourselves. I mean, and after, like you said, I didn't want to be on medicine anymore. So I started learning a lot more about herbs and all that kind of stuff during this time, because I'm like not a medicine person. And so then was when I went into this light. So it's like the angels, but it was just so much brighter. So then I'm like, it was just like everywhere was light, and I was like nothing in this light. Like, yeah, I was nothing. And I was saying, well, if it's time for me, I can go, but I'd still like to stay. And there was no words, it was just this overwhelming feeling of just love. Like, and that's the only way I can explain it, but it's so much more than words can say, love.
all
Like,
of you are
just so much
definitely,
more.
or yeah, it's really tough to put
And
into words. Yeah, and
I
all of
just
you.
wanted to stay there. I just wanted to stay. I'm like, well, I could just stay here, but I still love my family and want to be there, but I could just stay here if it's time. And then that's pretty much then I kind of came back in my body, I guess, or aware, like fully awake. And so yeah. Then afterward, I was in the dark room too. Like everything was dark, no windows. It was like nobody was there. Rico would come when he could.
That's your husband, huh?
Which was most of the time, yes. And he really was there most of the time. I guess all this happening was probably maybe like 4 hours. And to me, it felt like, I don't know, I don't have a sense of time, because I was really out of it too for like a couple weeks after. I really had to get back into myself. I don't know. And yeah, I was given drugs and all these blood pressure. I kept having to go get, more, less. And then I actually ended up back in the hospital 2 days after I got out. I was there for 3 days. Had to go back because the blood pressure was high again. And this time they said, we don't know what to do. Like, we did the treatment. And so that was really kind of like, I was like, okay, now I really don't want to die. Like, now I really, I loved it, but you kept me for 2 days and I'm not ready now. But then so it was okay. Yeah, I'm okay. And I learned a lot about herbs and stuff like that. And I'm still on the learning journey of like actually getting in there and healing ourselves like I did. Like, I'm still trying to get more information, more people who are more professionals or whatever with that kind of thing. Because I'm like, I know we can, I did it, but it's like harder now than it was then.
Harder now. What the?
Just, I guess, getting in that mode. Like, then I guess I had to, I kind of had to heal and learn that. And now it's like I've got to put it into real life practice, and it's a lot harder than.
But you guys are doing amazing, and you have a lot in common with the fact that you're all doing amazing healing work and session work with people, and yeah, I mean, everybody will have access to your websites, which I'll put in the description. And what's really amazing is accessing something that is not very accessible in the human realm, right? We really need to lift these veils between life and death, the waking world and the dream world. And just to hear your stories of connecting into something that helped you to feel empowered, that you were going to take the initiative to heal more on your own terms and with what you intuitively knew and know deep within is the best way. And you were maybe, you know, and it just really feels like you open gateways and it ripples out to the rest of us to be able to break those veils and those seals and those fences that separate us in a way. I mean, not like true separation, but a illusion type separation from true source, you know, and the polarity, the duality that we see in religion and how it expresses itself. So I'm sure you guys come from families that might have had belief systems that were totally challenged by all this. And I think you mentioned that, Beth. And so, yeah, I want to shift gears into like the healing journey and the different things that, you know, came along. But I also don't want to forget to ask about, maybe I should just do it right now and somebody can give a quick answer. When people talk about false light and archons and, you know, imposter beings, do you ever feel like you've run into that? Or when you hear that, it's like a immediate knowingness that that's not what happened to you guys, you know? Because I just imagine that there might be comments like, oh, well, whatever light they saw might be the archons, you know, the false light. And I'm just not getting that at all from any of you that that's what took place. But maybe real quick, one of you or, you know, can answer that before we move to the next thing. What do you think of those kind of theories? And even if they do exist, that certainly isn't something it seems like you guys experience, right? Or what are your thoughts?
It's nothing like what I experienced. And I always kind of think that Robin Williams movie, What Dreams May Come, where you create, and I think we have...
Where the imagination is a part of this, yeah.
Yes, and what the people that have experienced those type of things, I think it's something that they're pulling from their human experience into into that as well. At least that's my personal opinion.
Right. Well, it's like a larger dream landscape, but much more real. So, Beth, go ahead.
In my experience, our heart portals, our heart center, is directly connected to that source energy of perfect divine love. And when we're able to tap into that, now this depends on who you're talking to and who it is that you're speaking to, right? Because as a healer, you kind of have to figure out how to meet people where they're at. Doesn't matter where they're at, what their belief system is, right? So, but to certain people, I could put it in this term, you can interrogate the spirit, so to speak, or if you are coming up against an entity or a being or an energy form even, that does not resonate in that field of divine love, you're going to know if you ask them to send you that or to let you experience how they're connected, how they serve light, how they serve divine love, divine compassion.
So you're saying having sort of a discernment and asking and seeing what you get, and that's how you can navigate between...
High discernment is close to my heart. I love to talk about that because there is a way to do that. And that's part of our empowerment. That's part of our sovereignty. That's part of taking our authority back, is to understand that we can have that. And they're not going to be able to, because there is false light, and I'm not saying that there's not. And I'm not saying that they don't trick human beings, that they do all the time, into trusting them and thinking they're whatever it is that they're trying to put this facade on, that they're not. But when you found a way to really tap into that divine love and divine compassion, I don't think they can masquerade. At least,
no.
I have come to the conclusion that that shatters them pretty quickly when you ask them to show that, or to give that to you, or to show, like, send a frequency of divine love and divine compassion to me that I know who you say you are. They can't do it. Right?
Brilliant. Yeah. So, yeah, well, I mean, you know, you three are very extraordinary in the fact that not only did you go through this, I know, terminologies, near-death experience and actual, you know, death experience and returning, which we'll talk about the alchemy and the healing, because, you know, death is not a final ending. It's death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation, which is, you know, what you guys are coming back with is that ability to heal, the ability to listen to yourself and connect with healing tools and modalities that can really help people to connect in a very preventative way with all this crazy stuff breathing down our neck. So talk to us about the healing journey part of it. And as you started to get off those medications, what world were you entering and what was the healing transformational process like for you? And then you can maybe talk about what you present to others and what sort of teachings and services that you provide to others. And it's not like a closure thing, you know, but it's just a way to kind of tie it in, because obviously what has worked for you is something that you know, gift others with. And, you know, at the very end, we'll talk about like websites and any upcoming events. But yeah, the healing part of it, where you started to take your power back, knowing that these medications and drugs that you were on were not going to cut it.
Hey.
Yeah, go ahead, Beth, if you want to answer that one.
Oh, let's see.
Or if you feel like you need to pause and we could go to somebody else and come back to you. I'm just.
And I'm just trying to figure out like the beginning.
Well, you talk about the shaman journey and things connected to starting to communicate with the trees and the woman you worked with, we talked about, and what kind of protocols did you set up for yourself? And yeah, what kind of helped you to be this radiant being that you are today with everything, you know, when you came back in being shut down? Like what, after
I had like I mentioned, I had been a massage therapist for many years, and I had Reiki, so I at least knew how to do that kind of energy medicine. And you know, I wasn't as I've always been somewhat of a spiritual person, but boy, this turned it up, right? Nothing like a near-death experience to do that to you. And I'm still on this path, just like Amber mentioned, of discovery and epiphany and coming to new realizations of like what it all means, and oh, this is connected to that, and all this other stuff. And that's a good thing, because we're all on this path of spiritual evolution. I started just doing my own hands-on healing, and I started receiving information about like exactly where to channel that energy into the organs that had failed me, and my tissues and my cells, and you know, trying, just like I said, doing research to try to figure out like what supplement can I take that's going to heal this or heal that. So all of that started coming through. But I had talked to you about this before, where I spent the first 2 or 3 years running away from this near-death experience and this calling, right? So for me, I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, and it was hard for me to make sense of it because my brain hadn't caught up to what happened in this multidimensional realm of no space, no time. It was hard for me to really understand it in full. And I didn't have any language to even explain it, even if I could have spoken, right? Which I couldn't, if you remember.
Right, because you pulled out the thing and it affected your vocal cords. And not to like cut you off or interrupt, but to help to for anybody who might have a similar question. So you weren't able to speak, but you had multiple organ failure. I mean, did you have to rebuild a lot in your brain, or was that pretty easy once you started to come in and that everything was kind of firing and you? I mean, we don't have to, I might end up taking you off on a tangent, but I guess
that's fine.
Good luck with that. Whatever I just did.
I've had a lot of. I had so many different therapies to like rehabilitate. We don't know how much, if any, like brain damage that occurred during the coma. But I surmise that there was some, because it took me a while to get cognitive function back. That was a big part of the therapy that I had. I was like, I went through this phase where I was like, I was so shut down and closed in my own world. I had to be out of necessity, but even as my voice started to come back and I was starting to recover and heal. And then you got to remember too that, you know, I discovered Bruce Lipton and the power of your thinking mind, and how you can guard your thoughts and have this thought process to try to rebuild your organs and try to hold your thoughts in the best light that you can. And I had such a bleak prognosis. I had a lot to fight. I had a lot to fight on that because keep going back to the doctor, keep going back to the emergency room. You know, having all these medical professionals telling you, you know, I had less than a 20% chance of living 2 years after I got out of the hospital unless I had a liver transplant. And I never had one. And by the time I got around to where they were like, well, it's time for you to have one, I didn't need one anymore. And they said, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it must be working. So
So it was mostly starting with the hands-on?
Yeah, I started with the hands-on. You know, right, it's so funny to me because I remember this one small story. When I first came out of the coma, prior to all this sickness, I knew like lemons, for example, are a tonifying healing quality to the liver and to the kidneys. And I remember like trying to write down when I didn't even have motor skills enough to actually write down what I wanted. So somebody had taken a sheet of paper and wrote down the alphabet for me in letters or numbers rather, so that I could like point to what I was trying to say. And I wanted a lemon so that I could squeeze fresh lemon into my water and drink it because I knew that that would help. And they didn't want to give me the lemon because they thought I was going to try to eat the lemon.
Yeah, it's just like they have no idea how brilliant and connected so many are that they don't even allow a person to facilitate their own transformation and healing. It's like you're literally up against a control force.
Well, that's just it. They have their own brainwashing that they go through in schools to regurgitate all the information.
Yes, and much love and forgiveness to that.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's not, you know, they know in their mind and in their heart of hearts, they're trying to do what they think is right.
Oh, yeah. I have so much respect for people in that field. And this is definitely not about, you know, it's just, this is what needs, people need to know this. So anyway, continue.
Well, there's a place for it. You know, I mean, it did save my life. I wouldn't be here. I probably were, if it weren't for the ventilators and the feeding tubes and all the other, Lord knows how many medicines and IVs and all the other stuff.
It's a very co-creative thing, but you know,
it is.
If it was matched with more ability to empower the patient and listen to the patient, just like how we raise kids, we can't just control the kids and expect them to do what we say. We're here to protect them and guide them to be the best of themselves. So the patient, you know, relationship with anyway, so awesome. Keep going.
Well, I'm best advocate. And, you know, I became so highly sensitive to what was going on in my own body. I could tell them what was going on. But they didn't want to accept that, you know, without running a test or whatever it was that they had to do. And if they had no way to prove it, it just wasn't listened to. Anyway, going back to the healing part. So I was just doing what I knew how to do as far as energy medicine and working with, I call them my spirit team, you know, which I have gotten to know more as I got on the shamanic healing path, shamanic energy medicine and practices. But anyway, so I was on this road to recovery, and I spent the first couple of years after it took me a full 8 to 9 months to get out of the wheelchair and off of a walker. And then by the time a year had passed, I was, you know, back to driving. And I was kind of still in that brainwashed mode a little bit of feeling like, well, normal life is like having a career, but my massage career was completely gone. My license expired while I was in the hospital. I had a massage school. It got shut down while I was in the hospital. So I really had nothing to go back to when it came to that. And so annihilation has come to me in many different forms in my life, but this was the big one. And so I was just trying to redefine who I was and redefine, you know, what is reality, and trying to come back from my experience and
Uh-oh.
Come on.
She's frozen. I'm probably not going to edit this video, but anyway, we could segue and get back. Oh, there she is. Okay, keep going.
Awesome.
So I spent time trying to run away from this. And then, you know, it's like I said, that collective, I don't really call them that myself, but they kept coming to me in my dreams and reminding me of what happened and reminding me of what I was needing to do and what decision I had made to come here on this earth to do. This is your sole purpose. This is what you're supposed to do. And so I had a little bit of an existential crisis with that, because like, why are, I can't do this. It's sort of like, what are you asking of me? I can't do this. And trying to just sort of run away from it. And it was easy for me to do because I didn't have the all-encompassing supportive environment of, yeah, we totally understand, and talk to us about this experience and all that kind of thing. I was very quiet about it. Even when I got back to the point where I could speak again, I just wanted to fit in, right? I wanted to be back to normal again and drive and figure out
Right,
what
and play human
people can
again,
do.
but yet you're just beyond what most people can. Keep going. Sorry, I never
But no,
mean
that's
to
okay.
jump in. That's just whoa.
So they, like I said, wouldn't let me forget. So there was a conference going on where there's a bunch of healers and speakers and teachers and authors, and it happens locally in our area. And I had gone every year, and I hadn't been able to go where I had been so sick and everything, but I decided to go that year. And they had a list of all these people who were offering services. And this one lady, her name's Dr. Rachel Mann, was a shaman, and she was offering energy medicine sessions. And I was like, oh, I gotta go see her. Well, it was during that energy medicine session that something came forth from that near-death experience, and it just completely popped, right? And it was like, it completely just snapped me back into that reality of, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and this is how you do it. This is your avenue. And so she hands me a piece of paper and says, I teach classes if you're ever interested. Well, I put it off. I made every excuse in the world as to why I couldn't go. I don't have the money for that. I can't drive that far because, like I told you, Laura, there's not a whole lot of shamans in East Tennessee, or people that even do that kind of work. So finally, though, after about, I'd say several months, after that happened, I finally reached out to her and made some arrangements. And I call them mountains because they did seem like insurmountable mountains to me at the time, got moved to make a clear path for me to be able to go and apprentice with her. So I started out on that healing journey. And as you know, well, you don't know this, but her path of shamanism encompasses her Peruvian shamanism and Andean spirituality, and also Native American spirituality, and also Buddhist traditions, because she grew up as a Buddhist. And so she kind of pulls that very those heart-centered practices into it. But being close to the earth was so special and so important to me, because that's the way I grew up. I grew up in the mountains of northwestern North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, deep in the heart, like up on the mountains. And I lived down in the woods when I was growing up. That was my refuge. That was my place to escape, because the home life wasn't so happy, as a child. And so I pretty much lived out there. And so this allowed me to be reconnected with the natural world, to learn how to really resource myself from this natural world. And it made sense to me because it allowed me to reconnect my heart with the heart of Mother Earth, and my heart with the heart of Creator, great mystery, right? That still white magnetic light at the center of all things that Amber, you mentioned. And to understand this void and whatever else terminology we might use to refer to it, is the vast expanse of the open mind, this great oneness of which we are all a part. And it is truly the great I am of all that there is. And it allowed me to live and operate in this world and to heal. So I was going back in my life, in this lifetime, past lifetimes, and healing all these old traumas and these wounds that keep us all, right? They keep us all stuck in these places of fear and anxiety and panic and distress and limitation and belief that we're separate, right? These beliefs that we're different. And there is a very deep-seated thing in our collective minds that teaches us to fear what we don't understand, to run away from it, to turn a blind eye to it. Anything that's unknown, it's like, oh, I don't understand that. Shoot it, kill it, right? Or let's run away from it, or pretend it doesn't exist. And even as children, those dark shadows that came up for us that we're afraid of, what were we told? Oh, honey, that's not real. And so we're told to deny those senses from the time that we're a child. And shamanism was a path that just connected me back with all of that stuff and helped me to understand how to do that deep shadow work and how it can be your friend and a servant to you and to the collective and everybody else around you if you know how to face it with courage. And it does take courage. It takes a lot of courage for us to face the things that have been our trauma. You know, that kind of got me on that pathway. And I've had other teachers along the shamanic pathway that have come into my life, and Taoist teachers and all of it. You know, I see the beauty in all of these different cultures and spiritualities and religious beliefs that we have on the planet, but you can look at it and see where it's been infiltrated, right? And they take the things that were meant to be these beautiful teachings and they thread them with this fear that keeps us stuck.
Yeah, a judgmental God and damnation.
There's no hell.
And we can't source spirit from outside of ourselves. It's right here, right? And it's all within us. So that gets into a whole lot I could talk about forever. We might touch.
I think we could listen to you forever. Everything you say is really beautiful and amazing. I mean, it's true.
I tell
all of you. I'm just like so thrilled. Yeah.
We could all sit here and wax philosophical all night, I'm sure.
But it's so true. And it caused, you know, and then the worshiping of something instead of becoming and embodying, you know, those parts of our DNA that have been shut down. And these experiences that the three of you have had helped you to access those levels that are very closed off, which I kind of was ranting about, you know, earlier, that you all are addressing, and it's amazing. So we'll you know, pull it back around and also make sure that, you know, you guys all have a chance to share whatever, you know, you might not have been able to address with the questions that I've asked that you feel is important. And we want to kind of bring things into present time and look at the current world situation and what you're feeling, because you're holding a really huge role. And what brought you back to this earth that is very clear has a lot to do with where we are right now and how you are helping to usher souls into the new paradigm and open up these gateways and help us, you know, help humanity to remember, you know, what our true power is. So I think it was Susan next that we were just going to kind of stick with that order to talk about the healing journey when you needed to get your health back and the decisions you had to make and what has brought you to where you are today as far as the work you're doing.
I have a totally different experience with the healing process, partly because I was a kid and not only didn't have the knowledge,
completely different age group. Yeah.
I wasn't in an authority position to make those decisions. So I continued to have a lot of health issues for many years, particularly kidney and bladder issues. And I won't go into all those details, but I'll kind of jump ahead that I always dreamed of having children my entire life. I'd have dreams of being a mother. And then 2 weeks before, or right about 2 weeks before my first wedding, I'm at the doctor's office and he makes a very unusual comment because I'm there to get, you know, to renew my birth control prescription. And yet he makes this comment about me maybe not being able to have children. And so I go home and I ask my mother about this, and she tells me that after the second near-death experience or the second surgery, that they were told that I would not be able to have children. Then about 3 weeks or about 3 months after I was married, birth control pills started making me very sick, and I had to quit taking them. Needless to say, about 3 weeks after my first wedding anniversary, I give birth to my first son.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know, that whole having a child totally changed the chemistry in my body. And now I'm one of those people that it's extremely rare that I ever get sick. And I now have, I have 3 sons, and I also have a daughter, who we heard
Wow.
through here a little while ago, and I even have 4 grandchildren now as well.
Oh my gosh. How amazing. I mean, this is what is available that needs, people need to be reminded of this. Reality is fluid, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I honestly believe, because I was never told that it was doubtful that I'd be able to have children, and I always believed I would. I had no doubts that I would be a mother. It just, you know, I created that reality.
and this is what's so huge in this time that we're in. We're at a major crossroads. People really need to choose to recognize this great ability to, you know, co-create our reality. But
Mhm.
what are your thoughts about, you know, when you see somebody that's not in integrity and who, I mean, in the whole karmic principle of like racking up a lot of karmic stuff, and also how certain beings out there, leaders, not the president, I'm not going there in that political sphere, but when you see like AI and this total takeover and potential takeover, like what are your thoughts, you know, coming from the perspective of, you know, being like very whole and very aware, where the unconscious is not hidden from you. You've shown a light on it, all of you, and you recognize your fullness. And when you see these sort of agendas, I mean, what do you
When I
intuitively
look,
feel about the timeline we're on?
when I look at people that it is their intentions to bring those timelines forth for us right now, yeah, I see the same light and the same potential with them. I see angels with them, just like with everybody else. But their personal energy fields are they're they're not connected, not only to Mother Earth, they're not connected to other people. Because like, even I could, you know, like between a husband and wife or some partners, a lot of times I'll see an energetic connection between the two of them. It's like with these people, I do not see an energetic connection that they have to anybody.
Right.
And yeah, it just, there's this energy lacking within themselves.
And they're trying to impose this on everybody and kind of drag them down to that level, would you say?
Yeah, because they don't understand that, you know, other people are different, that other people do feel connected, that other people are. They just, it's like something's happened to them that they're totally cut off.
Right. I think, you know, the trauma-based mind control that's passed generation to generation creates such a disassociation that, yeah. Any thoughts on that before we move on to Amber to hear about your healing journey? Do you guys want to chime in about, but before I offer that, do you feel like, you've finished what you wanted to share with the question that I asked? I wouldn't want to, you know, shift gears. It's
Yeah,
really,
that's
really
all,
amazing what you
Amber,
shared. Thank you.
Amber's experience, and I'll be right back.
Awesome. Thank you so much for what you shared. It's incredible. Okay, so your guys' thoughts on AI. You know, you've had this incredible experience. You've allowed yourself to be empowered. You've taken on a healing path that has been, you know, self-guided and connected with your higher guides and your higher self. When you see these sort of AI agendas and things like vaccinations, mandatory, and this whole coronavirus thing, anything you guys want to share? And then Amber, we won't forget, you know, that you haven't answered the other question about your healing process, but any thoughts, you know, just to, you know, insert some of the stuff that we're currently dealing with. Any thoughts from either one of you about that?
You could go first, and then I'll just roll into it after you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's like a big question, and so I apologize in advance.
Well, I see a whole lot of power play happening, right? I mean, that's obvious. I think most people watching this probably know and understand that there's been a control aspect to the human race for quite a while. And there's a difference philosophies on it, because some people would believe, you know, in this loop of karma, and we have to keep coming back to the planet, right? A lot of people maybe are trapped even.
Okay, we're having a bit of tech issues being able to hear you, but it's getting better. So let's just hope for the best. Keep going.
So there's a lot of people that have maybe a belief that we're trapped in a karmic cycle. Not maybe everybody, but that's one way that they keep humans subservient to their agenda or whatever. They have chosen to cut themselves off from source. They
And go
made
into
their
that AI timeline, right? So it comes down to the choice, right?
Yeah. And free will is an aspect of that. So, you know,
Right.
I guess
so if you're unconscious and you're blindly being led into it, that's a lot different than being aware and saying no. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just our connection is not as great. So go back a little bit, but would you say you agree that the unconscious humans that are really following anything that is presented to them, what they experience in these current times are going to be way different than the ones that are awakened, and that our frequency is holding something that AI can't touch? Is that kind of what you feel?
100%. It's, as we talk about the organic ascension timeline a lot, right? There are divine blueprints in that. There's a divine blueprint that lives inside of us. I don't think that's anything that can ever be copied. I mean, I know that they're trying, and it's not something that can ever be replicated. Not truly. One piece of information that I would like to convey, that the way that I see things in a way is that if they go directly to source to get their energy, they're going to be transmuted back into source. They don't want that, right? They got their own agenda for whatever power they've agreed to or whatever agenda they're serving. And they have to use a human being, right? Or they use it could be more than just the human race, we don't know, as a power source. The way that they get to us is to get us triggered into this mind programming, this mind control that keeps us locked down into these lower energy centers, right? So you can even look at it in terms of the chakra system, where we're locked into the lower octaves of the fear, anxiety, or we're just made to believe the illusion, the smoke and the mirrors that they put up for us. And that allows them to keep us triggered so that we are giving them that food, right? We're giving them that anger, or the, not that there can't be righteous anger, but we're giving them our, giving up our power because we're giving into the fear and giving into feeling like there's a scarcity and that there's not enough, and there's panic and anxiety and depression.
Right, the survival chakra, the fight or flight. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so you look at that first, second, and third chakra. Well, they can use that energy in us to take our life force away, and that's where having this innate wisdom comes in, as if we can help people understand where their power lies, that they can take that back, that that's a choice, that they don't have to live there, then it completely changes the status quo. And the more people that can wake up to that, the better. The less control that they have and the less power that they have to carry out this dark agenda, or, you know, if their whole idea is to kind of take over once and for all and make us all, you know, if you're looking at injecting somebody,
not going to happen.
Right. And maybe, and we don't know this for sure. And Laura, I'm interested to know what you think about this. Maybe if they think like if they inject us with this thing and they got 5G or whatever it is that they're using as a mechanism to control, then maybe it would cut us off from source.
I think there's some connections, like, and it's an unbreakable bond. It's like everything trying to break up true love never wins in the end. I mean, we even see these archetypes play out in fairy tales where, you know, it's this separation and the quest to return to the true love. And to me, you know, it's represented in these higher dimensions that we can reach. It's the greater love story that's connecting us to the avatar consciousness, the Christ Sophia template.
Yeah.
I don't think anything can cut us off from that. I mean, we wouldn't be here right now, all of us, and all those that are watching that can think clearly, are free thinkers, that are connecting with their inner guidance. I don't think there's any frequency that can break that connection. There are vulnerable people, though, that are used to following the rules, order, into the new world order, even if it's been very corrupt and very, contaminated from behind the scenes with outer facades that keep us locked into like the news that are, basically false flags and a lot of narratives that steer people on a mind control level. Those are the people I feel we should worry about. And that is what your guys' purpose and role is. And many of us are here to hold that override frequency, to invite people to not limit themselves and have those parts of their chakra system like harnessed and used as a food source. So, people are having abduction experiences with grays, and that's still a part of the larger picture of the oneness field. And yes, I think humans are at a crossroads where they can become more genetically modified and more compromised. But, there's a choice right now to say, I'm going to reclaim my sovereignty and be a free thinker and connect with my own internal guidance. And that to me is the gift that you guys are bringing. And what I'm feeling is like really coming through big time.
Well, that's just it. We've all been trained to not critically think. We've all been mind controlled, brainwashed. Don't critically think. Take what you're given and take it as gospel.
I was told. Exactly. I was told I had learning disabilities. Yeah, I was shut up and shut down my whole childhood, so it's kind of surreal to even be so verbal. But Amber, and we'll come back, and like, I love you guys. I'm so happy you're here and doing this with me. So Amber, talk about your recovery process, and then we'll move on to, another question, and then we'll probably have to close soon, which it's not going to be easy to do. But anyway, Amber, so what was your healing process when, you recognized that you were being given a lot of drugs, and yes, they saved you, but the personal empowerment part of your healing journey, take us into that.
So that, I also, was just trying to get off all those medications that they just kept upping doses, because I'd go back with high blood pressure again, go back with more stuff. And I couldn't walk for a couple weeks. I was in a wheelchair also. I just I was just like jelly, I guess is a way to describe it. And I just started looking more into herbs, which I kind of knew some stuff before, like organic, kind of the basic things, but didn't know much about herbs and different things like that. So started looking into that, and eventually, a couple months later, 2-3 months later, I did get off everything. And it's also kind of funny because the doctor who had treated me at the hospital was somebody who'd never gone to the hospital. Like, they just happened to come this time, get called in, and he was like not a regular, never really there. So, but he knew exactly the treatment and every cause, how that could be caused. So I did have some questions answered. And I just, like, to me, that was like a kind of, divine timing, another thing that somebody came, like, some right there at the right time. But then also let's see. So it was pretty hard, and trying to get, that's when I got even more natural than I already kind of was drawn to, natural and awakening and that kind of stuff anyway. And medium, I always had that. And the messages I was given were really to step into who I really am, and family. And while we're here on earth, connecting, sharing, and like truly connecting, not the fake what they're doing. Like, it's not about watching TV and connecting with that and wanting to be something else, and not actually, it's getting into ourselves, going within, and actually, yes, finding who we truly are. And like Beth, it took me a while. I knew I couldn't really, I had my fiance to talk to, which luckily, he was also who was there as I started receiving messages when I say awakening more, like I got enhanced or upgraded. with my son before that I was pregnant with. I got pregnant. They're about a year apart, so they were pretty fast. So with that one, I was really getting a lot of messages. I started receiving messages with him. And so I was kind of already, you know, awakening to my, to who I am, but it kind of took a halt with that. But then it was like a kind of a slap in the face. Well, yes, here, come on. Because I was keeping it, you know, to just him and myself. And then even after all that, I kept it to him and myself for probably, you know, a year, and just kept, I do automatic writing, so receiving messages and just a lot of messages. And so, and I also started looking for somebody who can help me with angels. Like, why am I getting these saints, angels, and what now I know are ascended masters, you know, the different Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, like, coming through. I knew nothing about most of these. I mean, because I was not a religion. I had dipped in a few, like, seen, okay,
Right.
well,
But this is about
but not like
sovereignty
not,
now. Yeah,
yeah.
you dipped into a few. Keep going.
And so, but not other ones. Like, I didn't know Krishna really, but I mean,
Right. Like,
or any angels. I didn't know about any angels. So I mean, all that was new stuff. I didn't know. So after the near-death experience and kind of all the messages I was receiving, then he helped me a lot, because he actually comes from Catholic, so he did know a lot of the angels and things like that. But I went to a mentor. I just started seeking out, okay, who knows about these names that I'm getting, you know, angels mostly. And so I found a lady, and I got a mentor, and I was working with her for well, I started going to meditations and things with her, and really opening up, and just really getting into myself, you know, a whole lot. And then going under a mentorship with her and becoming certified angel intuitive practitioner, and learning. I mean, it was just a lot of learning. And that's also a lot of where I did find, like you talked about, other beings, or negative beings, archons, whatever it may be. That is where I have firsthand experienced in messages. And now, you know, I had to decipher the difference of, not all the light beings are of love and light. So I did, I mean, luckily I had enough discernment and things to ask things, but some I didn't know. And I have to, like, now when I read back, I can tell the difference of a truly loving and of the highest, best vibration, as to compared to the more prophetic, or kind of not scary, but like, there's a difference in, you can tell the energy difference and tell the difference after comparing. And then, yes, going through all this learning. So it is discernment. And that's why, like, now I'm like, protection, use protection. I'm like so huge on it, because just so many people in the spiritual community, I see it, are just going out there blinded. Well, everywhere, not just spiritual, like everywhere. They're just going out there blinded. And I'm like, oh goodness, no, you've got to set that bubble, that boundary, and only call in what is for your highest and best good, and protecting yourself. So it's like, you know, with the bad and negative, you have to realize there is the other side too. You know, please do protect yourself, and know there are beings that can be with you to also protect and love you and make sure you're okay during this time too.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's shift gears into, like, this coronavirus and what we're dealing with on the planet right now. And people are up against a lot of, you know, fears and confusion, not sure what to believe. And it seems like you guys, you know, already have it built into you based on your experiences of really knowing how to guide humanity right now. And that's why I really wanted to create this, because I've gotten to know the three of you pretty well. I've had the opportunity to look at your astrological charts, which are very profound and real deal, of course. I mean, that's just obvious. These are real experiences. That's what I love. So when you see, you know, where we are on the planet right now, and you also, you know, see people facing, you know, a similar crossroads that you did when you were kind of hanging on the edge of life and death. What are the most important things that you feel you want to bring in right now? Not just in your work and in your mission stuff, but like, you know, spontaneously with just answering this question, but really more about, you know, when, as you're in quarantine, what is really coming through, you know, because obviously you three have really strong missions. What is starting to really show itself more and more as, okay, this is the best thing I can do right now in these times with my work or with your own personal lives? Anything that you want to impart on us connected to that? And Beth, we can start with you since we're, you know, consistently doing the, and thank God you came back. I was like, oh my God, where is she going? Like, okay, like not be so attached. No, I'm kidding.
Wi-Fi.
But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so I know people probably hear this constantly, but don't waste the time. You know, this is a dark night of the soul, so to speak, collectively. And all of us on this call together have gone through our dark nights of the soul. And everybody right now is being faced with things coming up to the surface that are our shadow, things that they don't like. They're forced to like be in their own company every single day. And it really gives you opportunity. And this is hard to do. I realize it's a lot to ask. But if you can look at these hard times, so to speak, or the things that are coming up for you that are triggering you as an opportunity, that's going to allow you to really go deep now within. You've got to find a practice that speaks to you. Some people it's going to be meditation. Some people it's going to be getting outside and connecting with earth. Some people it's going to be going to church. It doesn't matter. I don't care, you know, what anybody's chosen belief system is. The thing that's important is that you're taking this time to really go within, because I mentioned the doorway when we were talking about the near-death experience. One of the things I do is ancestral lineage healing and help people clear those patterns, because I had to do a lot of it on my own. And we all do it just by healing, just by making a decision that you're going to heal from something and better yourself and be on that path of spiritual evolution or ascension or whatever terminology you prefer. You're causing healing in the collective. You're causing healing to ripple in your own family line, forwards and backwards in many cases. I mean, it'll go backwards and it'll go into future generations. That's just sort of how I've witnessed it and how it's been talked about by shamans and masters the world over that practice these healing arts for longer than we've been around. But if they use that opportunity, they can really go into it. Now, I want to speak just to something on a personal level that maybe people can relate to. My Chiron is in Aries, and I've had a lot of stuff coming up that might not mean a lot to some people, but if they're watching your channel, Laura, it probably does. That's the, you know, our wounded healer. And so I've had a lot of stuff around my family issues coming up. And I had a lot of ancestral trauma coming up that I didn't have to, but I made the choice to heal that. And as I was kind of going through this trauma that they experienced, the reason that doorway showed up is because it showed up in my own trauma first. So I went through the doorway of that trauma of my own to try to figure it out and to kind of chase the pattern down and find out, like, where does it come from? And in chasing it down, I saw and witnessed and felt and heard and observed their trauma patterns and their pain and all of the things that my grandfathers and my grandmothers and my family from way back have gone through. And human beings in general would carry all kinds of trauma. Each one of us carry different patterns of it. Like, I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains. There's a lot of trauma here. There's a lot of trauma everywhere. And so it just depends on our lineages what we might specifically be carrying. And so in going through that doorway, I experienced this process, either way you want to look at it, of entering into this pain, right? And I let myself feel it. So whatever you're feeling, let it flow through you. Don't hold it up. Don't let it get pent up. You're right. You've got to give it permission to move, but you've got to give it permission to move so you can release it. Let it come over, be expressed. So if you find that you need to cry your eyes out, scream, whatever it is that you need to do to process that pain, process it. Because in all the time since my death experience, that I have been able to enter a doorway back to that place of oneness, back to bliss consciousness, has always been through the doorway of intense trauma and pain. And letting myself feel whatever it was that I needed to experience that has come up for me, that's triggering me, that's causing me to have whatever emotion is around it that I might perceive to be negative emotion. And inevitably, when I go through that, when you figure out how to resource that heart connection, I experience this polarity, right? And I think everybody can experience this polarity at the same time. It's like you have duality, and you've got, the light and the dark, the left and the right, the masculine and the feminine, the up and the down, whatever gives us contrast is the duality. But in that duality, it's almost like going through the doorway of one leads you back to the doorway of the other. So you have this intense pain, and it gives birth to this intense joy and happiness and bliss that you can't describe. And it's almost like being back at that center point of the perfect balance there in that duality, where you can rise up above it and see the duality for what it really is. And I don't know if any of this is making sense.
Oh yeah, I'm just sitting here like I could just sit and listen, and it's like I don't know. You're speaking my language, and this is the kind
basically
of
just use the opportunity, right?
Oh, it's so beautiful to hear what you're saying. Yes,
just use the opportunity to go to let yourself feel what you're feeling, and ask the question: what can I learn from this? What did it come to teach me? What kind of gold, or what is the gift to the wound? Because there is always a gift in the trauma. There's always gifts in those wounds. And there's insurmountable, like Amber was saying, there's insurmountable spiritual support that comes through for us from so many different realms and dimensions. Ancestral help from the deeply well and the deeply wise ones that go way back. Yeah, I mean, that support is there, but you got to be willing to go looking for it.
Right, and and ask for it, because or else they don't want to intervene. We have to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask and you shall receive, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Really beautiful words. I mean, everybody's got to check out her channel, her teachings, and her healing work. I'm just so grateful for you and your journey. And before we move on to the next person, do you feel like you've completed what you've wanted to share in this part of it?
As far as, well, I didn't really talk yet about what I do or how.
Right. We'll come back to that, and that'll be how we close. But as far as, the question, we'll circle back around and have sort of a closure. We're already almost at, I think, about 2 hours in. But this is
just, I need to shut up and let somebody else talk.
Oh, it's like it's an orchestra of like musical instruments playing, and everything shared is important. That's why I don't really edit. I also don't really know how to edit, but I have people that can help me. But I like the raw, unfiltered, and it's all perfect and where it needs to be. And these are incredible reminders. So moving on to Susan, your thoughts of what you're seeing. If you remember, the initial question about the coronavirus and, people that are at that crossroads of, really choosing this greater journey, this alchemical journey, and really, seeing the beauty and the lesson that, you really you really expressed beautifully, Beth. What are your thoughts about the here and now, and what can you pass on to us as far as, your perspective or any wisdom you want to impart?
I did particularly like what Beth ended with, and asking for help. I think that is crucial right now. Whether it be asking your spirit guides or your angels, or asking your next door neighbor, your friends, whatever you need to feel connected. And finding some ways to bring some joy into your space, whatever you need to do that. If you're not sure, just turn on some music. Yeah, find something that makes you, want to dance around the house and just be silly for a little bit. Yeah. Um, go out and stick your hands in the dirt. It's a perfect time to go plant some seeds and plant some flowers. Yeah, that's one of the great ways to release anxiety, is to get your hands in the dirt. But particularly just finding some, music and tones, finding some way to bring that into your space, because that can help clear your personal energy, can help clear the space in your, energetically in your living space. Just finding some way to do that, just to help
Getting
release
into
some of
that space of lost
some of that
child,
built up. And
right?
I know one of the things I've done is I've gotten real caught up in all the YouTube videos and the different alternative news sources of what's going on in the background. And yeah, and after about a week or so of that, I was like, I've got to do something just to let go of that. I can't, or I'm just going to be stuck in that this whole time. So that's one of the,
Right. Really great point. Exactly. Yeah. Major.
yeah, 'cause, there's so many different alternative sources we can turn to for what's truly going on right now and what's the true cause of it. And, that's, a whole nother discussion, as we all know. But yeah, find some way to feel connected to, to bring some joy into your space right now.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And the boundaries we were talking about, protecting our auric fields and our creative
Yes.
channels from the intrusion of this propaganda. And
Mm-hmm.
these things that also make us feel like there's something outside of us that's going to save the day. And there's an outer war. It's either going to win or it's going to lose. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's such the duality field. And you guys really, that
But
resolution
we also need to visualize what it is we want to create. Because we have a chance to restart and reset and create the world we really want here. What is it you really want?
and
Do
you
you
did that
want
for
to,
your own life path in the most
for
amazing
your own
way.
life, for your own life path? We want to create a cleaner environment. What is it that you want to do to offer to the community that you live in to help create that? We're going to have, me and a friend were talking about this the other day, because we're all, so many people are now learning to work from home. So now we're going to have all these big office buildings that are going to be underutilized. What are we going to do with those spaces? Why not do
and make them healing centers. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
hydroponic centers where we can start growing our own food locally, where we can bring in people like our homeless and be training them to help us run those hydroponic centers. Things like that. Those, that can be a start. So many people, we've forgotten even how to cook and can and even grow a simple anything in our own yards. We need our elders to teach us how to do those things again.
yes. Oh my gosh. You guys, it's going to be amazing when you check out her website and all the incredible artwork that has come through her and activations. And I swear it's all right. I'm going to stay chill and not get overly ecstatic. Cause got to stay integrated with the polarity of light and dark. Don't want to get too excited.
Yeah, we got to find a way to continue to stay grounded.
Right. I tend to, yeah. And then
we all want to do this. All of us want to get back to that one, even if it was just a moment of feeling what it was we felt during our experiences. There's a part of that we want to still be connected to, and we want to experience again.
You bringing that gift to the world and reminding them and helping to lift that separation I mean, these are extraordinary stories and journeys that you've been on. So we'll circle back around, you know, for everybody to share, you know, what work you're doing and services that you provide. A lack of a better term, the English language is definitely limited. But Amber, give us, you know, your thoughts on where we currently are. Coronavirus, humans are at a crossroads, making big decisions in their everyday. What's kind of flowing through you, and what wisdom would you like to impart, you know, to anybody that's just like freaking out?
Well, what I want to touch on what she said. I like to call it heaven on earth, like bringing back that, just bring it all here, that beauty that we kind of experienced. It won't be the same. We know that it's like definitely not the same, but at least close to it. So we can feel closer to the heaven here while we're here.
Right.
Appreciating family, connection, all that. Integrating,
yes,
you know, Father, sky, and cosmos, and Mother Earth, and bringing it into ourselves and all throughout each other, you know, in harmony and balance. Okay.
So beautiful. Yes. I mean, bringing up the family thing and the relationships and yes, keep going. Sorry. Just had to.
Yes. And then so with the coronavirus, that stuff, yeah, you're right. I get into that. I'm like, I've got a balance because I go kind of, I'm always in the positive state, you know, like I stay in that higher vibration, but I can't, you know, I'm like, oh, well, what could this be? You know, all these questions. Is it this? Is it that? And then eventually I just have to come and say, I've got to a point where I'm just like, okay, I really don't know how it happened, what's real, what's true. But what I do know is we don't want to live in fear. Like that is just feeding the negative. That's all that does, is feed the bad powers that be, the negative timeline. So I know for me, I just try and spread and be in love and just say, you know what, no matter what happens, I know that, well, I'll be with my loved one. It's again after this, we're gonna all meet again, but that we also are ever, you know, learning and growing, and just to not live in fear but live in love, because no matter what, that's the best way to go out. If we're gonna go out, I don't know, you know, I'd rather be happy and be living it up and out there with Mother Earth. And yeah, even me getting out there, I'm getting out more and really connecting more with each other, the family. You're at home now and connecting with Earth. You can get outside more, and yes, finding what is it. I think so many are stuck in like what's going on, but really a lot should be asking, what can I do now? What am I gonna do? Like go within and find what it is that your soul yearns for. I feel like this is a great time to really figure that out.
Here.
Yeah. We lost Laura.
It's all about kind of, Susan, you're talking about turning on music and having that playful attitude. It's about that sacred wise child. We all have that sacred wise child that in many ways got abandoned, which is what a lot of this is all about.
Mm-hmm.
There's so, yeah.
With that.
Yes. And there's so much that we can heal. And especially when we're able to face it and not deny it and not have, you know, subpersonalities that act out the wounded self, but actually can be transparent enough to just say, hey, you know, I'm still dealing with this. And so, you know, you address all sorts of things in your healing work. So I would just want to go around before we close with, you know, what you have to share, you know, with people, with humans, them humans. But you know, we're humans too. I mean, it's, you know, obviously we're all in this together, but yeah, just addressing all this kind of stuff that has gotten you to where you are today, and what you're here to share. You know, take us into like what you're currently doing, how to find you, what you know you're putting out there. And we can start with you, Beth, because you've been that person that we just are going to start with. And it's not, I'm a Libra, so it's like I can't choose and pick things very easily, but go ahead.
Well, I talked to you a little bit about this in our interview with Starlight Energetics. And that was something that was gifted to me last summer. And for time's sake, I don't want to go into a great big description of that here, but you can find out more about Starlight Energetics and Starlight Alchemy at SoulFireAlchemy.org or BethSoulFire.com. They all lead to the same place. But I work with people through different mediums. So I do shamanic energy medicine, shamanic journeying, beyond quantum healing, hypnosis. I'm a Reiki master. So I have a variety of tools. And lately I've been doing a lot more tarot and oracle. And also I'm really doing a deep dive on astrology, even though it's something that I've studied for years. As you know, Laura, it's like learning a new language. And it's really, the more I look into it, the more I realize it's kind of like a hard and fast science, but I love it. And so that's something I'm diving more deeply into, because I realize that all of these tools, and I feel like the more tools I have in my tool basket, the better I can help anybody, no matter where they're at, right, and meet them there. So a lot of what I do can be considered past life or alternate life regression therapy. Ancestral healing to help clear out any patterns that you're carrying that might be based in things that have been carried through generationally, that, it can be anything. It can manifest as physical symptoms. It can manifest as behavioral patterns, ways that you respond or react in the world, and also childhood trauma. And it don't have to be just childhood trauma. It just so happens that childhood trauma is what actually affects us throughout the course of our lives, and where we receive a lot of this mind control from outside sources, right? From TV, from society, from elders, and then also from our parents, which is the ancestral stuff. So a lot of what I do is to help people go in and find ways in which they have been traumatized, and figure out how to do that shadow work. We refer to it as shadow work because there's inevitably things that come up that cause us to be triggered, that cause us to be locked into unhealthy habits and patterns and belief systems that just do not serve our highest good. And we all want to be living on that highest destiny line, right? We all want to figure out what that highest octave is for us, where we can live our best life and do the most good for ourselves, do the best for ourselves and for everybody else around us. So that's those are all tools that I use to help people realize how to heal from that and how to live on that highest destiny line, and to harvest the gift from the trauma, and how to connect with the spirit world and to receive any gifts that are lingering about for them, that are just waiting for them, lost soul parts that they can reconnect with, angels, guides, teachers, animal allies. In the shamanic world, we deal a lot in, and I know, Laura, you talked about squirrel medicine the other day.
I was just going to say the squirrel, it's like, it's still with me. Like, anyway.
It's amazing, right? So that's just it, is that every living thing, all of the animals, the plant kingdom, the stone kingdom, all of these, the elementals, they all contain this powerful medicine for us. And they come to us at various times in our life when we're working on these traumas and these wounds, to help us, enable us, to strengthen us, to fortify us, to show us what their wisdom is. And so that's what I'm here to do, is to kind of help connect people with that.
And that's the integration of polarity of any adversity has the wisdom.
Yeah. And another aspect of that is because of the nature of Starlight Energetics, it really helps to upgrade the DNA and unlock latent abilities that might be, something that has been kind of never manifested as our potential.
Right. And ancestral clearing comes with that, which you mentioned. Yeah.
And the basic components are just keeping your energy field clean and clear. So a lot of what I do to start out with people is just the luminous energy field clearing, or the auric field, or the biofield, whatever you want to call it. We all have that magnetic field that surrounds us, just like the planets do, our Earth. What affects her affects us. A lot of what I teach are just everyday tools that you can take and make applicable to your every day of your life to not only keep that energy field clean and clear and flowing free, but to give you tools that you can use to connect with the natural world, source yourself, how to go deeply within, how to go into those doorways, right? Those doorways that I was talking about of that trauma, how to enter into that place of bliss consciousness. And it's all about training. It's all about practice. That's why we refer to it as spiritual practice.
Spiritual practice, yeah. It's like going to the gym. You know, it's like a spiritual gym.
Yeah. So moving on from that, the way that you can connect with me is I have a YouTube channel called Beth SoulFire Alchemy. So you can find me there. Also, I'm doing a free program that I'm launching in a private Facebook group called Awakening SoulFire. And if you want entry to that, just type that in the search, Awakening SoulFire. I'm getting to put that out on my website, but it's also, you can find links in my YouTube channel as well. But the program that I'm launching is called From Suffering to Sovereignty. My goal is to launch that the first week in June. And this is going to be a completely free program. It's like a live webinar. So it'll be for like a week long, every single day, live interaction, or you can ask questions. And I'll have this template where it's going to give you step-by-step things that you can do, that you can start implementing to take yourself from those places of suffering to stepping into your own authority and into your own sovereignty. And what that means. And you didn't talk about it, well, you did talk about it in a direct sort of way when you put out your video addressing the dark forces the other night.
Oh.
It was actually the night we were supposed to do our interview. And that, you know, it works collectively. So everything that affects us on a micro level affects the macro level. So, you know, we're all working towards this together. We're all in it together. We're all one family. But we have to start somewhere, and that place is to start with ourselves. So check that out. Check this Facebook out. That's Awakening SoulFire. And then also,
the sound is getting weird. I don't know if you guys are hearing it, but you were mentioning your website?
Yeah, my website is SoulFireAlchemy.org.
Okay, well, I'll be putting that in the description. So if you guys aren't able to hear that, you were clear up until just like literally seconds ago. So,
and then I work with people through apprenticeships, and I teach, and there's just various things that I do besides just the healing services too. So, but a lot of this information you can find at Beth SoulFire Alchemy, my YouTube channel. I'm trying to put out more information about this stuff to make it relatable to people, so you can kind of have a full understanding. And if you have questions, shoot me a question. You know,
nice.
I love that. I want to work off of what people are working with and what their struggles are. I want to understand. Help me help you.
What a gift. What a blessing. You're such a blessing. Really freaking admire you and appreciate you. I mean that to all of you. And thank you so much, Beth, for being here. And yes, that information will be in the description. And Susan, tell us a little bit about, you know, what you're doing and what you have to share with others, and
right.
And we'll put that information as far as website, of course, also in the description. But
okay.
yeah, like
the main thing that I do and that I've been doing for 20 some years now is angel portraits. So the angels that I see with people, I've been drawing those. And I do get names with those. I often get messages, so I'm offering those via Zoom right now as well. And then a number of other different activational art that I've been creating for the last few years. And then I also did one other unusual project where I've created mandalas for each one of the 81 solfeggio frequencies. The Reader's Digest version of what those are is the solfeggio frequencies are the frequencies used to sing our universe into existence. Therefore, they can help us realign with our original blueprint. So that was an 8-year project that I completed, and I have coloring books and meditation decks that for different ways for people to work with those frequencies. And then I also do crystal singing bowl meditations. I have recorded a couple CDs with those. And I'm venturing out on Monday evening next week on the 20th. I will be doing my first Crystal Singing Bowl live on YouTube.
Oh,
At
nice.
least and my intention is to do it on YouTube. I've never done a live on YouTube before, so we'll see how that goes. But
You know, I've never done a live on YouTube, and I've been pretty public for a long time, but that's like the one thing I can't figure out. But anyway, keep going.
yeah, so I'm offering that, and I'm just doing love offerings that evening for that. But and you can find out that information and more all on my website, which is susanwalterart.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Nice. And we can see some of the beautiful art behind you.
Yes, there's a few pieces behind me.
Nice.
You'll find the prints for the mandalas, the coloring books, the original pieces, all that on my website.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been incredible. You share this space.
It's been an honor, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I might ask before we close if there's anything we didn't cover, but I think we covered a lot. Okay, so Amber, tell us as far as thoughts about the here and now. So Amber, take us into where we can find you, what you have going on right now, and what your work is about in the world at this time. And I don't like the word work, so I'm just like, we were talking about how the English language is limited. So when I say certain things, sometimes a vibration, I'm like, it's not quite the right word. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all get each other. So anyway, go ahead, Amber.
All right, yeah, so I work with the angels and everything, and also spirit guides, spirit animals, pretty much any guides that come through, they're here physically. You can see a lot of the animals that'll come visit. There's a reason, at that time, or ones that have been with you for your lifetime and before. So I work with the guides pretty much, and angels and everything I do. So, and I do angelic crystal healing, so my crystals are tuned with the archangels to give that complete balance and get in that beautiful state. And I do with automatic writing, so I give the personal messages and use tarot or oracle. It just depends what I'm feeling. And also, let's see. So that's pretty much like as a whole. I do just individual readings, or I also have an option for monthly, just like healing, to replace the old stuff like therapy, medication. Like we don't need that. Need to get back, in the flow and in yourself, and really finding who we are again. You are, like many people are just so lost. So I have that monthly option to also use the angels to bring in that healing and just guidance. And then I'm also just working now. I've completed a course, and it is specific to mothers right now because I feel we need to bring that energy back. It's just been distorted. Like there's so much, the masculine and feminine has been so distorted, and it's like, as women, we should be proud to give birth to our children and naturally. And there's just this mix that has kind of come in and tried to take away who the mother really is, what the nurturing part of us, the holding together, our emotions are okay, and we've just been told to shut everything off. And it's like, no, we're not like Hillary. We're not
that doesn't count. Okay. It's not, like feminist movements like miss the mark because it's just like, no, it's not just because you're in a female body that we're going to vote you into office. You need to be like a truly embodied divine feminine energy and also be in touch with your masculine. Just as the other. No, it's crazy.
Yes. So yep, that's what I'm working on. I've just created that and got finished with that. So I've got a group, Heart of Mother's Purpose, just for that. It's a 6-week course. And it's all about just...
make sure, I'll make sure to put that in the description. Sorry. So keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
That's
if
okay.
anybody's sort of like trying to write it down, I'm going to make sure it's in there.
Okay. And so that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, we're all ever growing, right? I feel like next year there might be something else I'm doing, because it's like there's so much we gather along the way, but
but
it's
you'll
just
update your sites, and you know, you're accessible. All of you are accessible, and that's awesome. I was a single mom of twins who are now almost 22, and they couldn't be cooler. And yeah, it's so interesting how we crumble the matrix through being willing to be authentic and trust our inner guidance, but also have love and compassion for where some of these forces or the creative energy and life force of the individuals that are creating this major opposition and duality. I mean, I tried in my video that kind of has gotten more hits than most of my videos to just say thank you. Thanks for playing the dark role. You know, it's great that you are playing the villain role, but about shooting anything else into us. I mean, it is really like the rollout of New World Order that I think they thought they could implement in the Hillary administration. So they're counting on us to buy into the fear of the coronavirus. And I feel like you guys just deprogram the world. And I hope people tune into this, because, you know, you guys prove that when you connect with your truth and you trust yourself, all that has something to learn from you versus the other way around. And some of the egos in the world and how that infiltrates family lines and politics and religion, you know, you guys, you know, took a personal stand, and I hope humanity can follow and be as brave and as strong and as incredible as you guys. And you're an incredible, amazing example. And I've really appreciated this time together. So does anybody have anything that you want to share before we close? You mentioned your work. We're going to put that in the comments, or not in the comments, but in the description. But anything that you feel now that we have to say goodbye that we might not have covered, you know, so feel free to just jump in and say anything you like before we close.
I have a couple of events that I forgot to mention just real quick. I'm doing a roundtable discussion with a few different people on April 22nd at 7 p.m. So if you want to follow me on Facebook, you can. That'll be live on Facebook. Actually, it's going to be a Zoom thing, but it's called Alchemizing Fear. So we're going to touch on this about how to take fear and figure out how to not only let it serve you, but how you can serve the fear. And so you can kind of have this integration process. You're not just shoving it in a dark closet and closing the door, because those things grow. We can do that. The other thing is that this Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, doing a meditation with a friend of mine named Naomi Moore. And we're co-leading this meditation together. And it's not just a meditation, but it's a healing as well. So I'm going to lead a shamanic meditation that's going to actually do the things that we're talking about to help you get connected with the heart of Mother Earth, with the heart of great mystery, into your own heart, get anchored into that energy, and to send love to everything, including what you were speaking to, even these dark forces, right? Because that's the one thing that was dissolved is our love, because that overcomes everything. And it's a really challenging thing to do. Nobody said it was easy. But if we can figure out a way to do it, it's going to dissolve and break up a lot. So I just wanted to invite everybody to that meditation.
That's incredible. Yeah.
That'll be on my YouTube channel, and we'll be uploading it to Facebook too. But
yes, please send me all that info.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Definitely.
You said you're uploading it to Facebook. Anything else?
Oh, that's it. It's going to be on.
It's not so great. So I don't mean to interrupt.
You're fine. I'll send you the information.
Okay, good. Because we'll put it. I'll put it in the description. Yeah. But it's huge, you know, to call back these fragmented pieces that have been captured, and there's a lot of blackmail out there, and you know, it takes a lot of strength, because yeah, anger is one of the phases we have to be willing to move through, but we have to channel it correctly and not get lost in the duality programs, because, you know, sinking down to the same level of the things that we're trying to, you know, overcome. You know, I'm sure there's been a lot of quotes throughout history of, you know, you can't solve problems in the same area that those problems exist. It's raising the vibration, going higher. And you guys all had, your stories are extraordinary. Okay, so anybody else have something to share before we close that you weren't able to share, that you might be like, oh man, you know, I really wish I could have shared this. You didn't ask this, and you know, it just didn't like work out in the way that, you know, could express. I'm sorry, my brain is almost turning into, I take this very like chill you out kind of tea. But okay, anything that you guys feel like you weren't able to share that you want to share now? And thank you, Beth, so much for what you just shared.
No,
What
I
about
feel
you guys? You feel good and complete? Awesome. Okay, so I think it's time to then close this round table, even though it's sort of like a King Arthur metaphorical thing to even call it a round table, even though we're just like 4 squares. I'd love to do more with you guys, and I am just in deep gratitude. You all are just absolutely beautiful and hold tremendous wisdom. Thank you, you know, for sharing the space with me.
Me too. Yes. Thank you all. I feel like everybody was, you know, a little different, and it just, but the same. We all have the same goal and light and love, and I love you all.
I love you guys too. I mean, I really feel that, and it's so strengthening and encouraging. And this is what we need to do. I mean, this is what steers the collective consciousness, is to, you know, really be a force of embodied energy, of authenticity. I mean, what is mind control? Shutting everybody down and having them follow something. This is what empowerment looks like, everyone. And yeah, check out what these women have to offer. And they're the real deal, and they've experienced something and overcame it. And we are in that place right now. And there's major crossroads that we're facing as a humanity. And we need these reminders. And the beauty is that it's a reminder. It's not about control. It's not about belief systems. It's about human potential and remembering who we are and what we're made of and what's possible in the face of things that might want us to believe differently. So thank you, you beautiful women. I'm so grateful for your time. And take care, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.